From the campus of California State University Long Beach, this is Beach Views.
Hi, welcome to Beach Views. I'm Marco Munoz, your host, and today we are joined by AngelinaNguyen, who is an animation student here at Cal State Long Beach. But rather than have me introduce her, I'll let her introduce herself.
Thank you so much. I'm also an international student, and even though my major is animation, I do other things too. I'm the newly elected salsa club president, and I just got into the Global Peers Ambassadors program.
Well, congratulations! That sounds amazing. We're gonna tackle every aspect of you on this show today. So we'll start off first with your animation background. What brought you to our animation program here at Cal State Long Beach?
It started off with my passion for drawings because I've been drawing for all my life. From the first memories I can remember on the ground, just like doodling with crayons on like a piece of paper, and that has grown into a love for creativity. And animation is one of the venues that I can use to express what I have in mind and express my creativity. Right. And it's very interesting because it's not the only way that I can do it, but animation is the way that I find myself to have the most patience for. Right. Because even though I love it, there are aspects of the animation process that I won't be able to like as much. Like when I have to sit for like 8 hours straight just to animate a 30-second scene. It's not easy, and you're like,
animation's hard work.
It is hard work. But for myself, because I can see the products that I'm gonna have after the process, that is what helped me to earn the patience and keep me going through the process of going for animation. And the more that I do it, the more that I have patience for it, and the more passions I have for it too.
Yeah, that's good. That's great to hear. I would say that animation is more like a universal language, as you know, we have images incorporated, we have nonverbal communication going in, and sometimes we have like animated movies that have no dialogue, and it's just all communicated, and like everyone from like any background or any like language could understand it. Would you say that's there's some truth in that?
I think that is very true, and it's part of why I choose animation as my passion. Because even if you're doing an animation scene where there's no dialogue, no character is communicating with each other verbally at all, but through the action that they do and through how they interact with each other, you can still tell a story and tell. There's a stories behind it, and people from different culture can still understand. Granted, different culture is going to have different meanings to different action, but there are things that are universal to everyone. Like there's expression. Your expression a lot of time is very universal. Like when you're happy, you're smiling, and you're having a good time, and your body is going to communicate that. But if you're sad, you're crying, and like your body is like hunched down, and like you making yourself smaller. Or like other emotion like anger is when you're just turning to the Hulk in a way. But yeah, and granted, different people are gonna have different ways in the way that they communicate that. But you usually can tell a person's emotion through the way that they're carrying their body and the expression on their face.
Universal symbols, right?
Yeah.
In our talks before, you mentioned that you had a passion for anthropology, and could you tell us how that plays into your animation?
So anthropology, at least in the field that I was being exposed to, is more on the cultural side, anthropology, and the linguistic side. Right. So it's a study of culture and how that is influenced by people, and how the people are influenced by the culture, and how that cycle works too. And it's very interesting because there are different cultures around the world. There's a pattern that you can see amongst different people. And it's very interesting to see how the culture is changing over time too, and the people are actually the one who actually influence that, and also the one who is influenced by that. Because like if it was like in the 1950s or like 1920s, I won't be able to go outside looking like this because there's a dress code and there's an expectation for women to dress differently. But nowadays, like I can mostly wear whatever I want. I will like bat an eye because we have a freedom to express ourselves.
Right.
And for me, that goes into it gives me a lot of ideas for when I'm doing animation because animation plays with the way you communicate meanings.
Right.
And a lot of times you communicate that non-verbally. So to know about the backgrounds of the way that people think and the culture that I'm working with.
Going off into that culture real quick, how while there are universal symbols and like expressions and stuff like that, that there is some different interpretations in which other cultures, how like they receive those symbols, or how sometimes they have specific ways of showing that. I think one example would be how maybe like a mom from one race would have like a way of like getting her kids to pay attention, while another one would have a different way. Would that be accurate?
It would be, and I can give a specific example is how adults teach their infants how to speak, and in most American cultures, from what I have seen and from what I have read through studies, a lot of times we have the cycle with the children is that we tell them, we ask a question, they give us an answer, and then we give them a feedback. And that is a lot of time how children learn to communicate with one another and communicate with other people. Whereas in other culture, the way that a child is taught to speak is actually by the adult holding the baby and talking through the baby like they're using the baby as a doll.
That's cool. That's interesting.
It is very interesting. And there's also a different culture where they actually have a kind of a chain of like command. So like the adult will communicate with the oldest child, and the oldest child would then communicate with the younger child. So it goes on like that. And so they have like a chain of commands, and that is how they teach the children how to speak, and also teach the children like the hierarchy inside the household too.
Right.
So for me, that was very interesting because it's a different way people think of how to teach an infant someone that knows nothing yet. The way that people find effective to teach them to talk, and like
I think my parents used the doll method on me.
Really?
Yeah, now that you mention it, I was like, yeah, that sounds kind of like, I think that's how I learned how to read.
I know, right? And it's very interesting because like different, and it does, sometimes it's have a positive effects too.
Yeah.
And it really depends, and none of them are very bad, but it's mostly just which culture are you from and which society are you using that skill on.
Yeah.
Because there are different, because sometimes it could have a negative effect, like how there was a study done on children of more white people, and they were taught the way of the question, answer, and feedback, and that is how they are taught at school too. Whereas for children of color, they are taught in a different way to read a book. So it's more of the parents like creating stories and have the kids helping create that stories. So the way that they learn at home is different, and so that has a negative effect on them because when they go to school, they're not as accustomed to the way that the other children are taught yet. So as they go on,
there's like a difference in systems.
There's a difference in system, and which is not really a good thing. But then, so that's why I would really recommend for at least people who are in education to be more accommodating with different children and different culture.
Where they're coming from, because you know, like it's probably like these kids do know what they're doing, but it's just you know, it's not exactly how they're going about it, but as the way that it's being presented to them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because they're children, so they're still learning too. So
Yeah.
to be more linear with them and to be more open with the way that they learn will be helpful for them because they're learning. Even as adults, we're all still learning.
Yeah, and I think that goes more into like the institutionalization of education, but that's for another topic. Today is all about you. So you said you got recently elected as the president of the Salsa Club?
Yes, I have been a Salsa Club member since last year in spring. So at that time I was with the salsa team, so it was more for performance, and we were
What
learning.
brought you to that? What brought you to the salsa?
I actually started my love for salsa dancing in middle school because one of my teachers, she actually loved the dance, but there were not many dance venue around her. So she learns about the dance, and she kind of like have a bunch of us middle school student, and she just have a free class for us to teach us how to dance and to appreciate the music. And that's where my love started, and it has been quite a few years, I would say, and I still love it. And when I heard about the salsa club on campus, it was probably the first club that I go to, and I just signed up, I joined them, I start socializing with people, and now they see that I was devoted enough, and so I was chosen as the new president.
That's cool. How do you feel about that?
To be honest, scared to death. But you know what? I feel honored that they trust me enough. And granted, I worked for because I love to dance.
Right.
I want to practice. I want to be more involved. And I'm very honored to be able to hold this position.
Could you talk about some of your responsibilities?
Well, one of the responsibility is to organize the salsa club meeting. So usually we meet on Tuesday night from 7 to around 10, and we have the dance class beforehand too for 2 hours, and that's where you can learn how to dance. And like usually you don't have to know how to dance yet. That is why we have the club, so that we can teach the student how to dance, how to like start socialize with people.
It's really accommodating.
Yes, and I feel like that's actually probably very helpful for people because the dancing help people with socializing because you are in a circle and you're changing partner like every few minutes, so you get to be very quickly familiarized with a lot of people. And for shy people, it will help them to be more open and to be more willing to talk to other people. And granted, introverts, we're not very good with like socializing, so I think...
You're an introvert? Are you saying you're an introvert?
I used to be one.
Okay, alright, because I was about to I was going to have to interject there if you were going to claim that you're an introvert.
I would say I am extrovert with a timer.
No, I feel that,
Because I can socialize for a certain amount of time, but afterwards I would need
to recharge.
And like, or an extrovert would actually get more energy from socializing with people. And sometimes I get that too, but most of the time I will need the time to recharge myself.
My friends and I, we have a whole thing we call it like our social battery, and we just say that some of us have it longer than could last longer than others. Me personally, I could go out maybe 2-3 days in a row, but then after that I can't go out for 2 weeks. I need a recharge. Some of my friends, they could go out every single day. My sister could go out every single day, come back home at 6 a.m. and still do that the next day, go to work, do that, go full week kind of thing. I'm I don't know how you do it. I personally cannot. I need to recharge. I cannot see anyone. I cannot hang out with anyone until I feel all right, now I miss them. Now I want to go. I'm ready, you know?
I feel you. Usually that recharge period is when I tell people that I'm dead. Temporarily dead. So don't talk to a zombie because I will not respond to you. But it helps though because it's it helps me to understand both sides of the extrovert and introvert spectrum, because in the club there are people who are on both sides of the spectrum too. So that way I can understand, like, oh, okay, and I can help to organize events for them too.
Yeah.
Because like kind of activity.
Yeah.
So some people are not as comfortable with that. So for me as a club president, I would like to help them to accommodate with that and to help them be more extrovert, because as a society we do reward extrovert a little bit more. So a lot of time the extrovert are the one who are usually the trait of the extrovert is usually more praise.
Yeah.
And so like the one who like the go-getter one,
Right.
the one who are like out and about and are the one who actually usually get more praise. But then there's power in being an introvert.
Yeah.
Because you can be more
Inwardly focused.
And yeah, and being inwardly focused is important, because if you don't understand yourself, then like how can you understand what works for you, and
Right.
how can you understand about other people too?
Yeah. There's different strengths and weaknesses for each one. There's different strengths and weaknesses for each one. You know, I feel like they just all complement each other as a society, and we just all kind of work together well like that. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you can't do something because it just takes too much toll out of you socially.
Mm-hmm.
So you could ask your extrovert buddy, like, hey, could you go to McDonald's and like order me this, like, I'll pay for your food.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll be like, yeah, sure, why not? I'll go to the busiest McDonald's there is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess we went on a tangent there. We could switch topics back again to you. And how did you start off more like introvertly, like within the salsa club, and then like work your way up, or were you already like more of your extrovert with a timer, like personality, as you say?
I think I start off as an introvert when I was younger. Then I have a mother who's quite an extrovert. So her method of raising me is to throw me into a situation I'm not familiar with, and just let me deal with it.
Sounds
and
like film school.
I know, it's exactly how it is in film school. But thanks to that, I learned how to be extrovert, and I learned how to gauge myself and how to extend my timer in a sense. And so when I got to the salsa club, I'm already more aware of how to socialize with people, because I have been socializing with people before, and even before I got to the salsa club in Castle Long Beach, I was the president of the international club in Cypress College, where I start my community college. So I start with that, and that is how I learn a lot of my skill right now. So I'm not as I'm a little bit more confident this time around, and I'm confident that I will be able to do well. Granted, I am very welcome of all the help I can get.
Yeah, that's good.
I should be able to. I'm looking forward to my year at the president with the salsa club.
I'm proud of you. Like, congratulations.
Thank you.
Switching back topics, back to animation. So, in our previous talks, we talked more about inspiration and what inspired you to get into it, but we never really went into, say, if you have any like favorite films or just like favorite anything that would kind of serve as like inspiration for you. Do you think you could list a few for us?
I can. So what started with me was anime and Japanese cartoons, because I used to live in Vietnam, so that was the source of like animation that I have, and that was what I grew up with, and that has a lot of influence on the style of animations that I have. Yeah. But when I get over here, I watch other shows like Avatar: The Last Airbender, and that's probably my favorite show at the moment, because there's so much information and there's so much value in that show, because the show is very well written. That's how I would say it. Because let's just say the bad guy was the Fire Nation, but then you can see some of the characters from the Fire Nation actually had some good qualities about them. And also the good guys are the Air Nation and the Water Nation. but sometimes there are actions that they do that is morally gray.
Yeah.
And it
Or
makes
they come across like people from like that are supposed to be from, you know, on their side that, you know, have their own agendas. It's like, oh, hey, this is supposed to be our friend, but kind of betray us and just puts it in a different perspective, right?
Yes, and it's a show that I would recommend for everyone to watch as an animation. And for me, I think that's a very good show. Another one could be Ghost in the Shell. And that's a very famous Japanese animation from back in the last century.
Yeah.
Because it is probably the inspiration for films like Blade Runners and The Matrix. And so, and that movie has a lot of like good monologues about humanities and all that things too. And you know how much I love about studying about humans. They are probably my main inspiration for animation and for stories too.
Yeah, that's a good range. You got stories is about like you know, relationships between people. Then you got Ghost in the Shell, which is like about relationships to technology and you know like world governments and stuff. That's interesting. You got a like a really nice range of things going on there.
And for me, because I'm a little greedy when it comes to knowledge. AKA, I like to learn about more things than just what I do in animation. Because, yes, I do specialize in animation, but my inspiration comes from more than just what is in my major. And that is actually recommended by my professor, is to go out, read about more things than just what you do, and read about more subject. And that way that's a way that you can learn more. You can have more ideas, have more inspiration to do, and that is what's gonna make your animation more interesting. Because like, if you don't have input from others, then your animation is just gonna be very nice drawing. But then you don't have the story. You don't have a story. You don't have a plot line. You have no way to engage the audience rather than just like fancy animation adventure.
There's a thing going around, you know, like professors always tell us here, like that it's important to, and I guess it's as I've seen, it's like across all the arts, you know, it's like study more than just film, you know, don't be like just content with what you learn in film school. Go out, like read a book, like go out and like pick up a textbook somewhere, you know, on something that you have no idea, and maybe you'll find something in there that you find interesting and you'll bring back. And I think that's why that's why there's like a lot of interest in like biopics, you know, like the lives of other people and stuff, because you never know. I guess there's that whole market of like, oh, someone else's experience and someone else's life is being told here, and that's interesting. And that's why like documentaries are popular as well, which is like you're learning about something, but that something is like someone else having learned about that, and it's just like packaging it in a way for you to see.
Yes, and like probably documentary is one of my favorite genre of film because you learn so much. And granted, sometimes there's like a little bit of like the person's own bias, but most of the time there's a more overall view of the subject. And those are probably the easiest way for people to get into different subjects because it is a good documentary. It's gonna make you want to watch it again and again.
Have you seen any good ones lately?
Planet Earth. Oh yes, and I was watching one about Colombia, and because I was learning Spanish, so I was listening into it in Spanish, and I have a different view from if I'm watching something in English too, because when they're speaking in Spanish, there are words, there are things that they would know more than me, who is an outsider. And it's kind of like how I study with anthropology, because if you're doing research on that, you go to a culture that you have no idea, and you have no bias. Well, actually, usually you do have a bias that you have, and that is the thing that you have to lose before you start your studying in anthropology, because it's a study of culture from an insider view, and you as an outsider have to get rid of your own bias before you can study it. would have been missed out if you were still keeping your own point of view.
Way to look at it.
Yes.
Yeah, like I wouldn't have imagined, but like it makes sense when, of course, like to look at a society, like growing up, there's like all these inherent biases that are put into you by like your surroundings and by like what your parents taught you and stuff. So to academically look at it like at another society, it, once you explain it, it makes sense. Like of course you would have to try and like become like this whole blank slate and stuff, you know? That's so interesting. Just a couple more questions on here for today. Can you tell us like about any projects you've been working on this semester in the animation department?
I'm actually making, right now I'm more focusing on learning the skills in animation. But next year I'm gonna start on making my senior films.
Ooh.
And that is one movie, the idea for that movie actually came from when I was studying, I was looking into psychology, actually, because there was like the 7th stage of grieving. And so my movie is gonna be about a guy who was like going through that and actually going through that himself because he turned into a ghost. He's gonna have to go through, and because I'm not gonna do like dialogue, it's mostly gonna be conveyed through the way that he interact with the characters in the movie, which is a skeleton.
Yeah.
And granted, the beginning stage where it's for like character design, so doing storyboard and like doing layout, but still because I have the story already right now, I just have to action start making it and maybe start other projects too, because I do have a lot of ideas that I want to make into movies. Granted, a lot of them are more suitable for live action, but still I would still want to turn them into animation, because I think the animation idea sometimes it can be better than human, because you can push it more than you can push it the action more than if you're doing a live action.
You know, you're already starting. Here we're proud of you. It's really nice to hear this kind of story coming from like someone within the arts and stuff. You're president, you're a global peer. You're on it. You know. I want to thank you very much for being with us here at Beach Views. Do you have like any closing statement?
I'm very thankful to have this platform, and I would want to encourage other people to also reach out to other fields that you wouldn't think about, like at least for communication, because we are human, we are social creatures, and to learn about how we communicate can lead you to more interesting things.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Once again, I'm Marco Munoz, and this is Beach Views. Thank you.